All right, today I'm going to be showing you why BPC-157, TB-500, and Tesamorelin can be an absolute game changer for optimizing recovery. As a doctor who specializes in men's health and hormone, I want to give you a bit of a different angle than what you're probably hearing on social media in the peptide echo chamber. I work with guys every day who are on TRT, lifting hard, getting surgeries, tearing tendons, and dealing with all the chronic stuff. So I want to tell you basically what I'm telling them. In this video, I want to mechanistically break down BPC-157, TB-500, and Tesamorelin no fluff, how they synergize, why they can be stacked, and the nuance behind IGF-1 conversation and the correlation causation with the big C word. Then we can also kind of chat about what lab rats may be good candidates for using this stack. If you're into deep dives like this with no BS on peptides and hormones, please hit the subscribe button and stick around. Let's get into it. So first, let's talk on a high level. What is this stack actually trying to do? So taking a big picture look, when we look at BPC-157, we're looking at local tissue change, decreasing inflammation, working on oxidative damage, and actually upregulating the growth hormone receptors. TB-500 affects more of the cell's movement, angiogenesis, how cells and blood vessels actually recruit growth factors to the site for recovery. BPC does similar things. Tesamorelin is going to be boosting your growth hormone output, and that in itself, growth hormone is very strong for regeneration. So kind of a metaphor that I use, and look, these overlap because like I said, even BPC and TB-500 help with angiogenesis, but this is just how I can kind of think about them in my mind. So if we can think about like a muscle sprain or a slight tendon tear, we can think about that like a construction site. And so what do we need? We need the architect, we need the foreman in there to design the plans, we need roads that are bringing in the material, and we also need the workers there who are on payroll showing and fixing everything. So I kind of think about BPC being the architect or the foreman. I think about TB being the road and the road crew. And I think about Tessa basically being like the workers and their payroll. Now, breaking down that a little further, BPC is a gastric dry peptide. Most of the data we have on it is preclinical, but we do see quite a few consistent themes. Very popular in preclinical data for gut healing. It modulates inflammation, helps deal with oxidative stress and overall damaged tissues. And BPC activates signals like FAK. Some people say FAK, which is focal adhesion kinase. And I got flack for this in another video when I was talking about GIP. I said GIP. Look, VEGF, VEGF, which is vascular endothelial growth factor. Some people say VGEF. So I've also heard people say VEGF, right? We know what we're talking about. And many of times in the medical field, we condense things, right? MRSA. So it's funny how people always find things to complain about. So anyways, back to FAK. We also have ERK, ERK, which is extracellular regulated kinase. Basically, these are all just involved in cell adhesion, survival, and migration. BPC also upregulates growth hormone receptor expression in certain tendons and muscle models. This means that basically saying that the tendons and muscles become more sensitive to growth hormone. Well, what does that mean for you and me? Well, the local tissue becomes less toxic, less inflammatory sludge, and less overall oxidative damage. The cellular signaling shifts towards repair and remodel, and not just stagnation, which often leads just to chronic inflammation. And with the growth hormone present, the tissue receptors actually respond more to that signal. So back to the metaphor, BPC is basically acting like the architect or the foreman, basically cleaning up, giving new blueprints, improving communication on the site, and making it more responsive to growth hormone. Now, TB-500, I look more for cell migration, angiogenesis. BPC kind of does that too. But the way I think about TB-500, it's an immunopeptide, right? It's actually produced from thymus and beta 4. When you have destruction of a sprained ankle, it is recruiting growth factors to the site that basically help with regeneration. And it actually helps the actin cytoskeleton. This is how your cells physically move around. So by promoting cell migration to the tissue and the issue site, your fibroblasts, your endothelial cells, and other repair cells can kind of come in and fix stuff. So also stimulate angiogenesis, which BPC does as well. You get more new blood vessels in the area. That's going to recruit more nutrients overall and just help with regenerations. Many models are actually showing too that it helps with excessive scar formation and just helps support overall healing remodeling. So a lot of people use it in aesthetics. So practically thinking where TB-500 is helping the cells get to where they need to go. And it can also get rid of all the junk, right? So when I think about TB, I think about the construction site, like the roads and the traffic that is kind of coming in and out to help it optimize the regeneration, right? So BPC, we got the better plans, the better communication. TB-500, we got the better roads, we got the better logistics. And then we get on to Tesamorelin, who are the actual workers and kind of the payroll. So many of you, if you've been on my channel for a while, Tesamorelin is what is a growth hormone releasing hormone, and it helps our body release more growth hormone. It's a spot in the pituitary, and then bang, we get a pulse of extra growth hormone. And it is FDA approved in a drug called Egrifta for people who with HIV have bad lipids. Many people will make the argument, though, using this instead of exogenous growth hormone may be safer. Because if you're taking exogenous growth hormone, your levels are just going to fly up into proportion to the amount of GH that you inject. One of the problems with regeneration as we age is that our growth hormone is dropping, just like testosterone. But yeah, as we're aging, our growth hormone is decreasing. And that's why when you're 18, 20 years old, you can go and play football, stay up all night boozing, wake up the next morning and do it all again. And as we age, we can't do that because we're not regenerating as well. And what Tesamorelin and other growth hormone peptides can do is help optimize your growth hormone back to more of your youthful range. Tesamorelin's also actually been shown to help reduce visceral fat, which is the fat around your internal organs, and overall just improve all your metabolic markers. Optimizing your growth hormone, we're going to get better recovery, muscle, and tissue remodeling in general. And like we said earlier, with BPC, basically setting the groundwork to increase the sensitivity of growth hormone. So you can understand how all three of these are working out synergistically, and you can see how this is kind of a cheat code for optimizing our recovery. Now, not to fear porn you, I'd like to chat a little bit about IGF-1 and cancer. Now, this is hugely controversial, and all the talking heads have their own opinion. This is not medical advice, but I'd just like to give you my opinion on how I think about all of these things. And the data is always changing. And then unfortunately, with a lot of these peptides, we don't have a lot of good data, especially on the safety side, especially with cancer. And what we have seen is the idea, especially with growth hormone, higher IGF-1 being linked to cancer. But in my opinion, most often, IGF-1 can go up in people who are actually very unhealthy. They're eating a caloric surplus. They have lots of oxidative damage and very poor habits that lead to a more cancer-causing environment. So I'm just not under the opinion that optimizing your IGF-1 into a space of 200 to 250, maybe even 300, is in any way increasing your chances for cancer. And I don't think the data really supports that. Now, if I'm wrong, please leave some comments below, because this is a very nuanced and important topic that many people aren't talking about peptides. Everyone's like, just shoot up with everything. Let's do BPC, NAD, TRT, growth hormone, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you work with me, I always say, start low and go slow. So what I highly encourage is anyone who's using any of these peptides to definitely decrease all of your chances for always getting cancer. So what I talk about with all my patients is living a lifestyle that helps prevent cancer in all ways, shapes, and forms, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, staying away from alcohol and smoking, endocrine disruptors in your environment, eating a low glycemic, low toxic, as natural as you can diet, which is very difficult. So now, let's be honest, when we look at something like a BPC-157, even a TB-500, these do increase angiogenesis and cell migration. And often when you have cancer, you don't want to feed it. So if we're in the state of promoting growth in our body, and what happens in a lot of cancer cells is their ability to apoptosis or shut off or basically stop growing, that ability gets messed up, then yes, we get growth. And we don't have a ton of data on either of these to show that people have taken these for a long period of time have not had an increase in any forms of cancer. I just want to make the argument, though, that I think most often from what we know about cancer, and again, I'm very happy to hear from some oncologists and other people and professionals in the space, is that it's really about the environment that matters most. So you can have a person who's very unhealthy and increase their IGF-1, yeah, it actually may increase their potential for cancers. On the other end, if you have someone who's very healthy and you're increasing the IGF-1, you're actually helping them regenerate better. You're actually helping them sleep better. So the tool can actually be used in both ways. But honestly, you really should be conservative when you're working with any of these things. This is why you should be working with a doctor. And I'm always, people actually know me, am very conservative, because why would I go with something that I don't know versus something I do know? That's why I'm actually such a big proponent of testosterone replacement therapy versus, honestly, a lot of these other peptides. Like, if I had to pick between this stack that we just talked about and TRT and what you're going to recover better, I'm picking TRT every day, because we know this is the TRT. We have way more data. We know how the bioidentical works inside of the body, where these other more nuanced, they're really cool. I like them. I like researching about them, and maybe even have some rats that I'm experimenting on, but there's still a lot of nuance we don't know. So I would definitely say that, if you have active cancer, I don't know why you would touch these. If you have had cancer, I'd be very hesitant to mess with any of these. And you've had unexplained issues kind of going on, weight loss, night sweats. If you have masses that you're feeling, you should go ahead and get your physical exam once a year with your doctor. So if you're on thinner ice, I would be definitely careful if you're turning up growth hormone, angiogenesis, and any form of signaling if you're in some of those risk factors. So who might be a candidate, and what kind of lab rat would you think about using this on? Now, I'd say someone who's very stably on testosterone replacement first, because I still think that that's safer. They have real orthopedic issues, tendon issues. They're going in for surgery. They have some form of chronic degenerate disease. And this is the other risk. Like, your other option is also surgery. Surgery is not always risk-free. Pain meds are always not risk-free. If you hurt your shoulder and you take these and you repair it, you get in the gym and you keep working out, versus like you tear your shoulder and you never work out again. This is the hard part. There's so many risks versus reward, and that's why it needs to be individualized. So really, like I said, a healthy person, solid foundation, sleep, nutrition, weight, their insulin sensitivity, and their basic supplements are all dialed in before jumping into a stack like this. And then again, on the other end, I don't know if I would run them continuously unless you had to. Like, I know of people who have Crohn's and colitis who taking oral BPC changes their quality of life. So that may be a risk versus reward there that makes sense to that person. And also, maybe using it in short bursts at a lower amount would be safer than using it every single day at the highest dose. Obviously, none of this is personal medical advice. I'm not your doctor. Please go and chat with a healthcare practitioner. And these tools will help you to think like an adult, not a TikTok trend. So if you're on TRT, you train hard, you got everything dialed in, and you have a real injury, you're having chronic breakdown, and your rat really wants to take this, your research mouse wants to really get recovered, then yeah, maybe these are some things that you should look into. So if you enjoyed this no BS breakdown, I have many other videos comparing Tesamorelin and other growth hormone peptides, BPC, TB-500. And please check out my channel, leave some comments below if you agree with me or disagree with me. I'm very happy. I almost always engage with everyone that comments below. And if you found this topic interesting, I think you'd like this other video that I did. Thanks for stopping by. Until next time, stay vigilant, my friends, and God bless.